Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of 30 for 30. That's right, 30 episodes of Springsteen Talk in the month of November. We are going through multiple episodes talking Bruce Springsteen albums. I am your host, Jesse Jackson, and joining me is my wonderful friend who I've now met twice in person. And Mark, I have to say that as much as I adore you, and think of you as a dear friend, I have a little crush on your wife. She is amazing.
She is. She's pretty good. She's even she's as well as embracing the whole Springsteen universe. As from when we met, what, like a month ago, as we were recording this,
Yeah,
she's also embraced the whole Dallas Cowboys universe as well. So
yeah,
you and I got to sit in a rather lovely restaurant in Frisco, Texas, and talk not only about Bruce and the Asbury Park show that I'd just seen, but also
yeah.
talk about the woeful state of the Dallas Cowboys this season.
Yes, yeah.
She
I
loved
had
meeting
such
you too. By the way, Jesse, she loved meeting you too. We had a blast. She really loved that whole evening.
Yeah, we had a good time. We had, by the way, an amazing waitress, and we told her at the beginning, we will give you a good tip, but we are going to be here a while. And we did. We had a great meal, we had a great discussion, and we finally both had just had to say, look, we could keep talking for hours, but we call Uncle. Yeah, I did want to let you know that I did buy the official download of the show that we were discussing there at the festival.
Yeah,
And I did talk to our mutual friend Terry Smith, and
cool.
he said that he would have traded the other three shows he saw to be there.
Yeah,
And and it was really charming because you were like, I don't want to talk about it too much because I don't want you to feel like, oh, I've missed out. But after hearing the show's downloads, I get why it's special.
before we talk about live 75 to 85,
Yeah.
I'll try and do it in 30 seconds. And as I said to you, I don't, a lot of people probably wanted to be at that show and couldn't be for many reasons.
Yeah.
And when the tickets first went on sale to see here now for Asbury Park, I didn't get them initially. I talked myself out of the need to be in Asbury Park. And as 2024 went on, and I saw a couple of shows early in the tour in Europe, I realized, who was I kidding? I really needed to be there. And I did not care what he played. I was not buying into the whole, he'll pull out everything from 1972. I wasn't buying
Yeah.
into the whole, what special songs would he play that references Jersey? Because actually, let's be honest, all of his songs are from there, right? And
Right.
and
Yeah.
where I got to in my head was, I would like to go and stand on the beach with Bruce in Asbury Park
Yeah.
and celebrate. I'm just nearly 51. I've been a fan since I was 10. So celebrate literally 40 whole years of this incredible thing. I have to just stand on the beach and I have to be in Asbury Park and I just have to watch and be there and celebrate and connect with him surrounded by all that history. I genuinely didn't care what he played. I didn't care whereabouts on the beach I was. I wanted to be with friends and celebrate that. And I made the right decision going for that. What we then got, Jesse, was indescribably good. It's the greatest thing I've ever seen him do. I put it. It's my 85th show. I put it as my number one experience of all time, and I say that understanding that there are a lot of people that would have wanted to go and
Yeah.
couldn't be there, and I don't say it lightly at all. The moment where I realized, oh, the money has been paid back, right? The cost has
Yeah.
been already redeemed. Was in the opening to the second song, right? He came out and opened with "Lonesome Day," which was
Yeah.
almost just toying with people, right?
Yeah.
And then before the second song, he said, "We're going to play a lot of songs that we haven't played in a long time.
Yeah.
This next song, I wrote 500 yards up the beach from here." And
Mm.
at that point, kind of 10-year-old Mark that had always wanted to know,
Yeah.
what was Bruce's life like? Where did he write these songs? Where did the inspirations come from? Suddenly, before playing Blinded by the Light, I'm standing there with him in this evening of celebration. And he tells me, and 30,000 other people, I wrote this song 500 yards away from here.
Yeah.
It didn't really matter what else came after that, although what
Yeah.
else continued to come after that was absolutely astonishing. Just a beautiful night, a beautiful celebration with friends and family, and just celebrating Asbury Park, as Bruce said towards the end of the show, celebrating the rebirth, the regrowth, the revival of Asbury Park. It was beautiful, Jesse. It was beautiful.
The year that Bruce played the free concert for the NCAA tournament that was at Jerry World, he did that outdoor arena on a show on a Sunday night during the Final Four. And uh the one of the Dallas Morning News critics said this is the could be the best Bruce Springsteen show ever. And he said, and if you weren't there, you're not going to understand because you're going to look at the set list and go, that's a pretty
Sure.
normal set list. It was because it was not an audience of diehard fans necessarily. It was a very small crowd because it was raining and cold when it's in Dallas. But the atmosphere of just having that little bit of coldness in the air and him opening up with Jump and doing
Yeah.
all these things, it was special. So it was the first time I heard Thunder Road live. And so you there is the context of, as we were talking sport, that you can sometimes a loss can really be special because of the context of who
Yeah.
you're playing and how well you played and what a great battle it was. And other times a win could be that was absolutely boring, right? So
But
absolutely I agree.
I'll give you. It's interesting. You've just reminded me. I'll give one Asbury Park show reference that links very directly to Live 75 to 85, which we are here to talk about. So there's a. I had not expected Racing in the Street. Racing in the Street is my all-time favorite Springsteen song. I have three or four which, I to me are in the absolute upper echelon of anything that's ever been written. Darkness on the Edge of Town is also up there, and a few others. But probably with the proverbial gun to my head, Racing in the Street is my number one. I had not in any way, shape, or form expected that to come out in Asbury Park. And as it was moving its way through the song, there is, of course, the line, "Tonight, my baby and me gonna ride to the sea and wash these sins off our hands." And I've been lucky enough to see Racing in the Street 7 or 8 times. It's insanely special every time I get to see it. But that one line delivered literally as we're standing next to the sea in the on the streets that where the Racing in the Street used to happen, right? I don't mind admitting to you and your many lovely podcast listeners, I spontaneously burst into tears and didn't recover until the end of Because the Night, which was about 10 minutes later, right? I cried for about 10 minutes. That line of "my baby and me gonna ride to the sea and wash these sins off our hands" delivered in that place, right, was to me probably the single most special thing I've ever experienced. A more light-hearted nod to the Asbury Park show when Bruce and Steve are doing their shtick about "it's time to go home, I don't want to go home." When I remember the Asbury Park show for very special moments, yes, meeting across the river into Jungle Land, right?
Yeah,
Yes, growing up with a story about driving around and growing up in Asbury Park and Freehold and all around there, obviously, and a few others. Tougher Than the Rest with Patty was mind-blowingly beautiful,
sure.
and a few other references. Maybe the one moment I'll take with me as the final moment when everything else has faded, when I'm maybe 90 years old, right? Was Bruce and Steve doing the shtick. And at one point, Bruce goes, "Hey, you guys over there by the ocean, do you want to go home?" And I was like, geez, that has never been said in 50 years of him doing this. It will never be said again in however long he does it. "You guys over there by the ocean" was just a lovely, stupid moment that will stick with me forever. But anyway, let's talk about this album, shall we?
All right, so your choice is the box set, the massive box set.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit. I can remember the hype, the
Okay.
that everyone's so excited about it. I remember for some reason, I can't remember why I have this feeling, but it feels like Linda and I were coming back from Tyler, Texas, where her brother lived, and went to the record store on this trip back, and there's this massive display, and I was debating, do I want the cassette, or I want the album? I ended up buying the album. I still own that box set. When I got rid of a turntable years ago, was moving everything to CD, I sold all my albums or donated them to Goodwill, but I
Yeah.
kept that box set because it was special. So talk to
Okay.
me a little bit about your,
Okay.
yeah.
So the, my point of reference here just needs a quick introduction, and
Sure,
I'll
please.
you know me well enough, right? This could go on a bit, but I'll keep this as
That's
short as
okay.
I can. It needs a preamble. I found Bruce when I was 10, 1984, Dancing in the Dark. Over the course of a couple of years, I picked up the other singles and then the Born in the USA album, right? I did not know about the live 75 to 85 box set when it was released. And actually, as we record this in late October, we are literally approaching the 38th anniversary because it was released in early November 86. So it's interesting timing. I didn't know about it in November 86 when it was released because I wasn't paying any attention to that. It didn't seem to get the kind of publicity that hit a 12 or 13-year-old. I had the Born in the USA album and I knew I liked Bruce. I had the Dancing in the Dark video. That was all I had ever seen of the band. And then in May 1987, the BBC, the British main television organization, did a special interview with Bruce that was actually about the Live 75 to 85 box set. So it was an interview with Bruce and some of the band by the famous British journalist David Hepworth. And I saw that when it was put on TV in May 1987. And Jesse, you and I have spoken in the past about how transformative that was for me
Sure.
because suddenly I get to hear Bruce talk, and there was even more than the songs, the interview, what he was saying about characters and life hit me as I was then a 13-year-old
Yeah.
very heavily. And some of the songs that were then shown, predominantly from like the Born in the USA tour, really grabbed me in terms of what Bruce was saying. So the likes of Johnny 99, the Promised Land, some of the spoken stuff he was doing, they showed War, they showed the
Hmm.
introduction that he did to This Land Is Your Land. And then the goofy stuff, right? So the TV program had shots from 1985 of Cadillac Ranch with Bruce and Nils. Nils in this crazy cowboy hat that he wore for a while,
Yeah.
with his blue Gibson guitar, which I loved. Seeing that, I was almost as fascinated by some of Nils's guitars and how Nils's antics were on stage, right? Because now I'm suddenly seeing the band for who they are and how they play their role in Bruce's music. That really hit me. I watched that over and over and over.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to say a month or two after that, I saw in a newspaper an advert for Live 75 to 85.
Okay.
So at this point, I've got the Born in the USA album and a 90-minute documentary about Bruce with these songs. And I realized that this is the album thing that he's talking about in this video. So I've also said to you before, right? We were not a wealthy family growing up at all. Various reasons. There was very little extra money around. And I went to my mum and said, I would like to have this, please. And she was like, that's a lot of money. I was
Sure.
like, I'll have it for my birthday. And my birthday at this stage was like 5, 6 months away. And she was like, maybe, but it's a lot of money. And maybe that's the only thing you could have. And I was like, I don't care. That's the only thing I want. I want this album. It's all of the songs that Bruce talks about on this documentary. So she says, if you're sure that it's the only thing you'll have for your birthday, I was like, fine. So we agree. And then I was like, and by the way, I'd like it now. Right. I don't see any way I could possibly wait 6 months for this thing, please. So we have this kind of back and forth about you'd 40 songs from this man you barely know 5 months before your birthday, and it's the only thing you'll have for your birthday. I was like, yep, that's fine. Deal.
Yeah, done.
She's like, okay, I tell you what I'll do. I'll buy it for you. You can listen to it a couple of times, then I'll take it away and give it back to you on your birthday. I was like, sure. it came a couple of days later. I played this thing through. It's 3 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I played it through transfixed. I remember, this sounds like an exaggeration, but I think people who have this kind of connection to Bruce at an early stage will know it is not, right?
Yeah.
I got the tapes. So
Yeah.
I got the three tapes, sorry. And I remember plonking in the first one and sitting cross-legged on my bed and not moving for 3 hours and 20 minutes until it got to from Thunder Road to Jersey Girl. And then I went to my mum and said, along the lines of, under no circumstances are you taking this away from me, and I don't care, I'll have nothing on my birthday, right?
Yeah.
This is in July and my birthday is in November. And she's like, oh, fine, whatever. I don't know how many times I played it over the next couple of months.
Yeah.
Hundreds. Um, it's to me the moment where I went from being, I know I like Bruce Springsteen, and I know I really enjoy that documentary, and I enjoy watching Bruce and Nils being goofy in Cadillac Ranch, and I enjoy hearing him talk about characters and troubles, and I enjoy watching the montage videos and Born to Run and that kind of thing, to being, I want to understand everything that there is possibly to understand about this man. And it was Live 75 to 85 that did that to me. Over the next few months after that, I just started doing a paper round. Every single penny I had went on the next small album I could buy. So very quickly after that, it inspired me to get, I know Born to Run and The River were the next two cassettes I got. And I remember being inspired to save up money to buy the albums so that I could hear about the characters and the other songs that were on those albums. And again, it was Live 75 to 85 that did that to me. I've put 3 or 4 ideas down on a piece of paper that I want to get to, but I'm
Sure.
interested to see what questions you've got for me, because you ask great questions, and I'd be interested to see where this goes.
I really did just my first question was, how did you find it? What did you do? And so if you don't mind, you've done a great job of articulating already, but if is this something that has continued even though it was your road to Damascus moment? Is this do you continue to listen to this on a regular basis?
Yeah, it's Live 75 to 85, Tunnel of Love, and The Ghost of Tom Joad. Those are the albums. I listen to all Bruce, lots,
Yeah.
but it's those three that I go back to and listen to over and over. And when I listen to Live 75 to 85, I generally don't just stick on a song or two. I will certainly listen to a whole album side or cassette
Yeah.
side as I had it. So, also, one other quick point of reference. I remember over the years, every time I would see a song live for the first time that's on Live 75 to 85, I remember still thinking, oh, finally, I've seen It's Hard to Be a Saint in the City. Finally, I've seen Spirit in the Night. Finally, I've seen Jersey Girl. And then even in July 2024 in Wembley Stadium,
Yeah.
I've seen Adam Raised a Cane 3 times acoustic, but bizarrely over the years, I had never seen the E Street Band do Adam Raised a Cane. Final night of the European tour, late July 2024, Bruce comes out on stage, and Adam Raised a Cane is the third song of the night. And 13-year-old Mark was just bursting inside because I was finally seeing Adam Raised a Cane, which was another one ticked off the Live 75 to 85 box set. I'm 50 years old in July. I'm standing in Wembley Stadium singing my heart out to Adam Raised a Cane. But there is a voice in my head going, this is on Live 75 to 85. Right?
So not including the covers, though I don't know, maybe I won't even give a qualifier.
Yeah.
How much of the bingo card have you heard live?
There's 3 left. There's three
Okay.
left. This Land Is Your Land I've never seen. And it's number one on my, I would like to see this before I die. Fire, somehow I have avoided over the years, and I've never seen Fire. And that's number 2.
Yeah.
And then Paradise by the Sea, which I'll never see, right? I don't
Okay.
even have any expectation of Paradise by the Sea coming out. But those 3 would complete. So I'm at 37 out of 40.
You've heard
Um,
War?
I have seen War, yes.
Wow.
Birmingham, Birmingham 1999 on the reunion tour with Edwin Starr, if you can believe it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, because I would have guessed that it might have been because I'm looking at this. I was thinking that Paradise at the Sea, War, This Land Is Your Land, I would guess.
Yeah.
And I almost was going to say, no, we should discount those, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And Adam Raised a Cane with the E Street Band, right? So
Yeah.
again, I'd seen Adam Raised a Cane on a couple of the acoustic tours, but had always held out hope I would get it with the E Street Band. And one of the reasons for that, as 13-year-old Mark pressed play on side one, and you get this acoustic or piano version of Thunder Road, and
Hmm.
then which I knew because that was on the BBC documentary. But then Adam Raised a Cane, which I remember thinking sounded totally different to any other Springsteen song I knew at the time. And take into account my only points of reference were the Born in the USA album and then the songs that were on the BBC documentary. Adam Raised a Cane sounded, how can this be the same guy? Wow, think about the incredible catalogue this guy must have if he can write Dancing in the Dark and My Hometown and I'm on Fire and also write something like Adam Raised a Cane. And I remember that being one of the moments listening to Live 75 to 85 for the first time, thinking, like, I love this, and it's completely different to other things I also love by the same man. I I want to know everything there is to know. Right?
Yeah. So obviously, the cheating answer is all of it, but you want to talk about a few highlights for it? Share?
Yeah, I will. So this is one of the first points I've written down. So for people that have got the cassette version of this,
Yeah.
side four, and I think if you had CDs or LPs or cassettes, it was slightly different structured.
Yeah.
But side four was Racing in the Street, This Land Is Your Land, Nebraska, Johnny 99, Reason to Believe. And as I got this, I was 13 years old, 14 years old, 15 years old, right, listening to it over and over again. And increasingly, side four, and it was my mother that noticed I did this and talked to me about it once, would be the side that I would play when I was in a particularly troubled spot as a 14-year-old or
Okay.
15-year-old. Your life is changing. It is not, for boys and girls, right? It is not
Yeah.
an easy time. And I loved all five of those songs seem to have characters or themes where the end is nigh, right? Or
Yeah.
it's a very dark place. And actually, what I would often do is play Darkness, which was at the end of side three, and then go into side four, right? So
Yeah.
I'd probably include Darkness into Racing in the Street, This Land Is Your Land. Those characters resonated with me because they seem to have reason to give up, or
Right.
reason to fail, or reason to stop, or reason to hate. And actually, what they find, and it's nicely done, is they find reason to believe, right? You go through those five or six
Right.
songs and you end with reason to believe, which I think is one of the most cleverly structured points of anything that Bruce has ever done on an album, because you go through a lot of reasons to doubt, a lot of reasons to stop or fail or give up or blame. And I like the guy in Racing in the Street who, you know, some guys come home from work and wash up and then go racing in the street, right? And as a 13, 14, 15-year-old, I didn't have that point of reference. But what I heard from that was, well, you can come home from school and give up, or you can come home from school and get on with it,
Yeah.
right? Or you can see your mum in a really difficult place and struggle, or you can see your mum in a really difficult place and be inspired by that and find ways to help. And what I got from that side four particularly, and again I include Darkness in it, but Racing in the Street
Yeah.
through Reason to Believe, what I got from that was you can choose to give up. Many people do, or you can choose to be who you want to be
Yeah.
and succeed. And Nebraska and Johnny 99, there's some characters that go very badly the wrong way,
Right.
right? But Racing in the Street, and I think the essence of This Land Is Your Land, and particularly Reason to Believe, I think you're dealing with characters and themes that identify that you can go one way, but maybe choose another. And as someone who is very passionate and very accountable and very strong minded and with clear beliefs, and at a young age, people looking at me going, why are you, what's the right word? Like, positive. Why do you have so much trust that things will be okay?
Yeah.
That kind of said to me, hey, don't listen to the people that think everything's going to be bad. Don't listen to the people that want to be negative and ruled by fear, right? You go your own way and be the characters on that side that see the hope and see the positivity, right? Live your own life, Mark, was what I heard from those 5 or 6 songs on side 4. So one day my mum comes to me and she's like, do you know, I can tell what kind of mood you're in, or if you're struggling with something, by which part of Live 75 to 85 you're listening to.
Wow.
And I must have been 15.
Yeah.
I was like, no, you can't, rubbish. And she's like, yeah, when you listen to like Racing in the Street and Reason to Believe and Darkness on the Edge of Town, I was like, yeah, side 4. She's like, yeah, side 4. You, I can tell you're struggling with something and you're trying to work stuff through, right?
Process it. Yeah.
And you're trying to process or understand your place, or I guess maybe it's been a difficult day at school, or maybe the whatever.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, that's true, but the rest can't be true. She's like, yeah, when you're in like a really fun mood, right? You're listening to like Growing Up with that stupid story, right? Or you're listening to Rosalita and Raise Your Hand. And I was like, yeah, they're like the side 1, side 2. She's like, yeah, so when you're listening to some of those, I was like, yeah, they're his like club songs. They're like featured there because they're his club years, right?
Yeah.
Like 78, when I think maybe the audiences were smaller and he was just like really just having fun and a blast. She's yeah, you listen to those songs when you're, I think maybe in a like a cheeky mood. I can tell that it's a day that you're up, right? So
Wow.
she could even judge. This is how important Live 75 to 85 is to me, right? That it opened up conversations with my mum about how I was doing emotionally. That's the level of importance this album has to me. So yeah, that's how it gets me in the gut. And I still react. I still have a physical reaction when Racing in the Street starts in a live show.
Did you, after she brought that up, was that it obviously was something you'd never thought of, but subconsciously you'd done that? Did
Yes.
you go, wow, mom's pretty sharp?
Yeah, that's yeah. And then she was right. She was absolutely right.
Yeah.
And it made me I probably knew it. And when I was maybe angry, I struggled quite a bit with getting angry when I was young and realized that wasn't getting me anywhere.
Okay.
But the kind of the Independence Day through darkness,
Yeah.
right? If I look back and I take my mum's guidance of this is what you listened to when you were feeling cheeky or fun or up. Here's what you
Yeah.
listened to when you were being very insular and trying to resolve stuff.
Yeah.
Actually, do you know what? One of the bits I listened to the most was Independence Day through darkness.
Okay.
And that was when I was angry.
Wow.
Because you think about, okay, Independence Day isn't like a powerful rock song to clear the head, but the themes in there are a pretty angry couple of men, right? Or maybe a young man and his dad. And maybe that was inspirational to me to hear that kind of dialogue. Because Independence Day is 2 men battling,
Yes.
right? And maybe that represented my how I viewed men at a time when I was 14, 15, 16, trying to grow up, becoming a man, trying to deal with internal dialogue about who to be, how you are. And then the way independent, one of the most genius things is the way that Independence Day fades out and then suddenly the crowd noise grows and you're into Badlands and it just blows everything away. And then suddenly you're into Candy's Room and Darkness on the Edge of Town. That to me felt like a very good way to clear anger and sadness and confusion. Same kind of thing. Like I see Darkness on the Edge of Town live. Again, one of my absolute favorites. And there's some lines in there, and I'm watching Bruce at the age of 30, 40, 50, whatever it might be. But there are lines in there where in my head is 14-year-old Mark that can't believe I'm standing watching Bruce singing that line about I'll be on that hill because I can't stop. I'll be on that hill with everything I've got. Right. I
Wow.
I just can't believe that I went from being 13 sitting cross-legged on my bed listening to that over and over again to now being able to sing it. And again, something in my head is not thinking about the Darkness album, right? It's thinking
Yeah.
about live 75 to 85.
Wow. Do By the way, I have to ask, did you get anything else for your birthday? Did young Mark?
Oh, good question. Almost certainly, but nothing of like.
Nothing.
I think she was pretty good to her word, right? Because I
Yeah.
remember that being a very expensive album, like a
Oh,
very
yes,
expensive purchase
incredibly expensive.
for the time. Probably something, but
Yeah.
no, it was she. I think probably good to her word. It was like you had your birthday present. Man, it remains the best gift I've ever.
I was gonna ask, you think about it, right? What is another gift that has been that kind of significance? And I think many people would say like a bicycle they got.
Sure.
Or I
Yes.
remember we we splurged on, and when Chris was like 16 or 17, we bought him a car.
Sure.
And I remember thinking I'm never going to be the type of guy who buys his son a car, right? I just won't. And then for pure financial reasons, my insurance agent said the way insurance works, the most expensive driver goes on the most expensive car if you have more drivers than you do cars. However, if you have the same number of cars as drivers, you can assign a driver. So your son, you the cost of a car is almost totally covered by the amount of insurance money you will save.
Yeah.
And so we found a used Honda and we bought it for him, and it was a standard, and he didn't know how to drive a standard. And he tells this story all the time. He looks and he is crushed. He's first thrilled he has his own car, then
Right.
crushed that's a standard. And Linda says, your dad taught me how to drive a standard. He will teach you. And Chris said, if mom learned, I can learn.
Sure.
So it's Christmas Day, and we go to an a commercial building that had this huge parking lot with no, just pure, there's nothing of obstruction. And I go, here you go. You can't hit anything. We're just going to practice. And he's practicing and he's getting frustrated and going, and a police officer pulls up. And Chris, being 16, 17, freaked out, right? It's cool. Cop walks over. Chris rolls down his window. And the policeman says, get a new car for Christmas? Yes, sir, I did. Never drove a standard before? No, sir, never had. He said, you'll be really happy you learned. Merry Christmas. And walked off.
Okay.
And so Chris is now 35 and takes great pride that he knows how to drive standard.
Yeah. Cool.
Your 75, 85 is that kind of moment
It's
in your
it's that
life.
it's that kind of moment. And my I'll give you one other quick
Please.
story that I had specifically written down, and then there's a couple of other things I think we have to get onto. So
Yeah.
I know when this podcast comes out, we'll have to
Yeah.
specifically make sure that the wonderful Michelle, who you've interviewed on
Yeah.
your podcast, hears this because the most special thing happened to me in 2023 in Dublin. So
Okay.
I always loved the live 75 to 85 stories.
Right.
Because again, like thinking about the interview that I'd seen Bruce do, this was my chance to hear his take on
Right.
things, right? So you've got the story before the river, which is just like when you properly start listening to it,
Yeah.
it's heartbreaking and told me at an early age, this man has very different points of reference,
Yeah.
right? The story before war, which, what did I just write down about that? Because I made a note about it. Okay, so he talks about uh like personal beliefs and thinking for yourself. So he talks about blind faith in your leaders or in anyone will get you killed. Now, again, I'm 13 hearing that, and I'm like, yeah, that's probably right.
Yeah.
Think for yourself. Don't go with the
Yeah.
masses. And again, that kind of appeals to me at the time as someone that was maybe a different kid,
Yeah.
individualistic,
Yeah.
unique in terms of my passion and my positivity and my thinking, and determined to be myself. And that's
Right.
good to hear Bruce talking about just blind faith is not good. Make out your own decisions. Think about things.
Yeah.
There's obviously the talk before "This Land Is Your Land," and even the really quick snippets before songs, like "Here's One for Friendship" that he says
Yeah.
before "No Surrender," right? But the story I go back to, and I can still do it verbatim, which is just ridiculous 40 years on, is is in the middle of growing up, which I loved, and talking about his mom and his dad just like in 78, right? And he's already touring, he's already put out 3 or 4 albums, he's already
Yeah.
successful, right? Still trying to convince him it's not too late, Bruce. You can still go back to college,
Oh,
right?
yes.
And my mom wanted me an author, my dad wanted to be a lawyer because there's good money in it, etc., etc. So anyway, I there was a school project in 1988,
Yeah.
and you had to talk about something that you really that inspired you or really grabbed your attention. And we would do these all the way through the school year, right?
Yeah.
And the theme, I think, was something along the lines of something that grabs your attention or something that you think is unique to you that you believe in. One of those themes, right?
Sure.
And I played everyone on the cassette, the growing up story. But my point was, if you listen to it, there is a point when someone shouts out from the audience and connects with Bruce.
Yeah.
And it's Michelle who's been on your program,
Right.
and she shouts out, "You got it!" Right? Because Bruce is talking about what they didn't realize, what my parents didn't realize is I just wanted everything. I didn't want to be a lawyer. I didn't want to be. I wanted everything.
Yeah.
Michelle shouts out, "You got it!" And I was talking to my classmates about it's incredible. This is recorded. Imagine hearing yourself connecting with Bruce, right?
Yeah.
Imagine being at a show and it's recorded and years later it gets put out and you hear your hero talking and then you hear yourself talking to him, right?
Yeah.
So my point of reference here was what incredible thing to happen to someone, not just to be at a show. And at this point I hadn't been to a show. I was 14 years old.
Yeah.
Not only to be at a show, not only to hear your favorite songs, not only listen to your hero talking, but to be captured interacting with him. Dublin 2023, early on last year's tour, a few of us went to the book signing of Gary Tallant's partner, who has put out this beautiful book of photographs
Oh,
from
yes.
it,
Absolutely.
it's astonishing. Good for her. It's incredible. She's been very kindly signing. And you had a podcast with her a little while ago that you very kindly let me join and ask a few questions. So we're at Nikki's book signing. And next to me in line, I don't know it yet,
Yeah.
is Michelle. And we just the chat happens, right? While we're
Right.
waiting. If you come from, yeah, I've come from the US. I was like, fabulous. I saw Bruce in the US a little while ago.
Yeah.
You're over for many shows, etc. As these things happen. And she mentioned about shows that she had seen in on the West Coast at a young age in the 70s. I was like, oh man, it's just my dream. Like, were you
Yeah.
at shows like the Roxy? Oh, I was at the Roxy in this year and this year. I was like, oh man, my real passion is the live 75 to 85 songs that capture that whole like the Winterland and the Roxy. And she's like, oh, you'll never guess what. I'm the voice that you can hear in growing up. And I'm like, come on, you're not. I was like, I am. I'm the person that shouts out, you got it. And I was like, but I've done like this school project about you when I was
Yeah.
14 years old. And she's rubbish. I'm like, I did. I did this whole school project about you being on live 75 to 85 and getting to hear it.
Yeah.
He's like, you have to tell my family this. My family are downstairs. So we go downstairs to the bar, and Michelle's come and meet my family, and I'm talking to her, and I want to get it right, but I think it was her son. And we started talking about this, and I said, I've been listening to your mum for years. He was like, that's funny. I gave up listening to my mum decades ago. It was just beautiful. So that was a lovely kind of full circle moment of hearing it, connecting with it, wanting to know everything about it, doing a school project on it, and then in some random hotel in Dublin, what on earth are the chances of universes colliding like that?
Oh,
And
that's
I got to
just
say hello to Michelle.
wonderful. So you and I are both NFL fans, especially Dallas Cowboy fans. So let's do a little Monday morning quarterbacking.
Yeah.
Is there anything you would swap out? I know
Hmm.
that at the time there was, and if you read on Wikipedia, there were people like, "Hey, how could you have not done a Prove It All Night or Fever?" A
Yeah.
couple other things. I've told this story before. My good friend Sam, one of his most embarrassing moments was on an early bulletin board. Someone said, "I can't believe they didn't have Thundercrack on the live set." And
Yeah.
Sam said, "Oh, yeah, they do. They have it on the very first song." Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Jesse, I don't know how you've done this because we had not pre-chatted about this at all. That's
Right.
literally the third thing I was going to raise. So
Okay, good.
I did a bit of digging because I didn't know if you wanted at any point on these podcasts for some actual facts to be read
Yes,
out,
absolutely. Yes.
as opposed to
Yes.
just emotional spiel from all of us
Yeah.
about these wonderful albums. Life 75 was released November 10th, 1986.
Yeah.
Three countries it went to number one: US, Canada, and the Netherlands. In the UK, it went to number four on the album chart. There were two singles released. War was one of the singles that was released, and
Yeah.
Fire was another single that was released. And there are, as they were released as 33-inch singles at the
Yeah.
time, or 45-inch singles, I should say, at the
Yeah.
time, and since on CD, um, there was a couple of iterations of how War and Fire were released, but both of them at one point had the live version of Incident on 57th Street as the B-side,
Wow.
which
Okay.
was apparently the last song considered that didn't make the cut.
Okay.
So Incident on 57th Street live, I think from 78
Okay.
didn't make the cut. I've heard it because I've got both those singles and heard it. It's an absolutely spectacular version. Absolutely
Right.
spectacular. I'm not sure how you work it on because I know I've heard reference to the fact that the 3 hours and 20 minutes was the maximum you could get on any formatting of CD or tape or
Yeah.
LP at the time. Incident on 57th Street is an astonishing version that made the B side of the singles.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I would have changed anything. The one that kind of was like, yeah, okay, was Paradise by the Sea, but I know why they
Yeah.
wanted to do that. They wanted to showcase Clarence,
Yeah.
and apparently Paradise by the Sea was quite a like a central point to the 78 shows. I get it. If there had been a way to get Incident on 57th Street on rather than that, but no,
Yeah.
I think it's about as close to perfection as you can possibly come. That the way it was put together, the songs to me, I don't look back now and think, wish anything else had been on there. I know Bruce has spoken about the fact that he really wanted to have Glory Days on there,
Yeah.
but he was convinced away from that by Landau on the grounds that it really wasn't very different to the album version. And
Yeah.
that's the same reason they left off Dancing in the Dark,
Yeah.
was you're basically just playing it like it's the album version. So they that led them down a route, I think, of the final cut of songs being songs that had something noticeably
Yeah.
tweaked, a different solo, a different
Yeah.
way of performing it. Thunder Road, obviously, just entirely acoustic on the piano,
Yeah.
and I think that's about right. I'm not sure. Sounds odd, right? I'm not sure Glory Days or Dancing in the Dark add anything to it, and I speak as a very passionate fan of Dancing in the Dark, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
I think they got it about as right as you can possibly get it.
Because you really have two, if I can put on my from an academic you're going for two, you're obviously going for commercial success, right? You want to sell a lot of units, you're pushing, but you also, I think, are trying to capture a time capsule of what was the band during this 10-year period,
Yeah,
right? And so that is a daunting experience.
yeah,
I think sometimes what would you do if you had a 95 to 2005? But now then, so many, we get the full shows on archives now that, you know, that are actually official, not just bootlegs. But I do think it's a great, for someone who never saw them during that time period,
yeah,
it does feel like a really nice time capsule of this was what it was like during that 10-year period, seeing Bruce go from obscure, critically darling live act that's often opening for people to going up to where he is arguably the biggest live act in the world in 84 and 85. So
Yeah,
yeah, well done.
I think they do it very well. It's funny. The last 2 years, of course, with the set lists being a little bit more
Yeah,
static, 2023 rather more than
yeah,
2024. It is funny. Oh, you've got someone.
that's okay. Yeah. I have another podcast right after this, so we're good.
Okay,
Hey
perfect.
Lou. Yeah, so go ahead, Mark. It's
Is that
fine.
okay? All right.
Yeah, yeah,
I'll
yeah, yeah,
you
we'll
you can
wrap
cut
up.
this back before
Yeah,
Lou
yeah,
joins.
we
Okay,
will.
fine.
Yeah.
So it's funny actually thinking about it again. The 2023-2024 tour, obviously with a little bit more static set lists,
Yeah.
particularly 23. A lot of my friends that come to some of the shows with me do mock me a little bit. I am not a big fan of Because the Night. And even with that, I think Because the Night on Live 75 to 85 was the right choice
Yeah.
because there's an unreleased song. Apparently, it was a very incendiary, popular song that everyone was talking about
Yeah.
it as they were leaving shows in 78 and reviews were being written. Because the Night was getting called out as this incredible new song that Bruce had that wasn't on the Darkness on the Edge of Town album. I know I'm very outspoken on this. I think it's something of a dirge. I really have never cared for Because the Night. Even with that, I think it's absolutely the right call that it was on Live 75 to 85. And I'm glad I heard it. And I'm glad I got to see or hear how they performed it. But it's the last 2 years, that point in the set of Because the Night, even with everything that Nils does for it. And as you know from previous podcasts, I'm a
Yeah, you adore
monstrously
Niels.
big
Yeah.
Nils fan. Yeah, Because the Night 20 odd times over the last 2 years has not been the highlight of the 2 years.
I absolutely know. And I am similar. I have talked about that night because the night, Prove It All Night are necessarily my favorites either. I
Yeah,
enjoy them, but there are if I had to pick, I would pick other things with all respect to the band. Any
right.
final thoughts, Mark, before we
Yes,
get you out of here?
thank you. Let me just close off if you like. And I went back today and watched it so I could get the
Yeah.
quote exactly right. I thought because live 75 to 85 to me was made so special by this BBC documentary
Yes.
called Glory Days. And I genuinely recommend if anyone has not seen it, it's on YouTube. It's called Glory Days, Bruce Springsteen documentary by BBC from 1987. I went back today and watched the final 10 minutes to get Bruce's quote because he talks about the final four songs very specifically,
Hmm.
which is Born to Run, No Surrender, 10th Avenue Freeze Out, Jersey Girl. And he says this: when you go down the last side of that record, you've got Born to Run, which asks the question, I want to know if love is real. You have No Surrender, which reaffirms to me the values of the things I dreamed of when I recorded Born to Run. You have 10th Avenue, which is a song about you're having a band, having my friends with me, and doing what we always said we were going to do. We ripped it up. And then Jersey Girl, I wanted that to feel like you're in a Corvette on a summer night on a long, slow drive, and you're back in the town you grew up in. But it's different. The places are the same, but there is something different about it and you. And not only is that the perfect summation of how beautiful that whole story in Live 75 to 85 is, but just to wrap this back, the Asbury Park show finished with 10th Avenue Freeze Out and then Twist and Shout and then Jersey Girl. So finished in almost exactly the same way as the Live 75 to 85 album. And as I was walking home after the Asbury Park show down the boardwalk to where we were staying, something in my head was just reminding me of, I think I need to go back and look at this quote. And then this morning, when I was just writing down that quote,
Yeah.
I just had chills because I was like, oh, geez, that's the quote I was thinking about looking for at 1 a.m. walking home after
Yeah.
Asbury Park. There's there is something the same, but something different. The places are the same, but they're different. And you go back and you look at them again. And I just think, Jesus, what must Bruce have been thinking standing on that stage in Asbury Park, finishing with Jersey Girl? Would he even remember what he said 40 years ago? that he wanted Jersey Girl to feel like the end of the summer, that long summer
Yeah.
night, that you've got your friends and your girl around you. Of course, Patty was there, and it's everything's the same, but everything's different. And man, what kind of full circle he went through finishing that show with Jersey Girl, and what full circle I went through seeing a show that finished with Jersey Girl like Live 75 to 85 does. So I
Oh,
just that's how it left me thinking. So again, I'm walking home after the Asbury Park show, and in my head is well, Live 75 to 85 finishes with Jersey Girl.
and you had your own version of a Jersey Girl there with you, and it's just perfect.
It was it was a perfect night. Yeah, and it's really nice to reminisce about that album, Live 75 to 85, and how it's weaved through my whole life. It's still totally special. And I just, Jesse, I've had the chance to talk to you 4 or 5 times. I love it every time. But thank you for giving me the chance to talk about this one because it's very special.
I am so happy you did, and I don't think we can end anywhere better. I've been doing these 30 for 30, and I've been talking to people about clearing their minds, opening their hearts, and revisiting these albums with a fresh perspective. And I think you've just articulated perfectly why we should do this. Thank you, Mark. As always, I love you, my friend. We will talk soon, and let's hope our Cowboys do a little bit better the rest of the season, but you and I both don't think they are.
I don't think they're going to. Jesse, it's always a pleasure. Love you, love your family. Can't wait to see you again soon.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mark. Bye-bye.